New World is a really strange MMO. Going into this game, I was expecting like a real theme park MMO, as for the past year, when they've been working on the game, it seems like Amazon's focus has been changing it from a sandbox MMO to more of a theme park, and they don't really have a clear sense of direction, and it seems like there's a lack of leadership within the development team. Before we get into the big critique, because there is probably going to be a lot of it, I think we should just establish our position on the game. And for me personally, the past 3 weeks I think the game's been out, I have had a really good time. Like, I haven't been able to stop playing it. I've kind of been no-lifing it, to be honest, and I can't remember the last time I've no-lifed an MMO since Black Desert, actually, and it wasn't even my intention to no-life this game. I was just going to kind of go in blind. What has your experiences been like with the launch?
Pretty much exactly the same, only I've probably not put as much time into it. It's been that every day I've wanted to play the game, and I think a lot of people are confused when I say foundationally the game's really good, and it does make me want to play.
Yeah.
And I think being critical about it is the only way we can really address it, because no matter how many problems we're having, I'm still having fun playing, but it's just very clear that the game has 1,000,001 problems, and they just need to be addressed. Like, I've put almost 200 hours in at this point, and you just constantly find problems or things that you would think would be baseline in an MMO, even for a smaller team, and then you realize that it's either it's not in the game at all, or it's just not fleshed out at all. And this is an alpha build for a game pretty much, and they've just launched it and said, oh, here's the full game of New World.
Yeah, definitely. It's like the more you play the game, the more you find these things that absolutely baffle you, how they're either not a feature in the game or how they've made it past beta testing. Two off the top of my mind, like really quickly, that I came across very recently, since I've just re-rolled to healer just to check out the healing aspect of the game. I've been doing these elite grind groups. And if there's like 2 or so groups, as a healer, if you don't do like enough damage, it's really difficult to get loot, because healers don't get contribution for healing team members, right? And in a game where
it's based on if you do damage,
yeah, and in a game where you need to constantly be grinding to have that RNG chance of getting higher item level gear score, it just doesn't make sense. I can't believe that's made it past beta testing, and this is a game that's had more testing than any MMO I can think of in recent memory. Another one, how is there no raid group option? Like, the max party size is 5 players.
I think it's because they've just not, all of this stuff, like the PvE aspect of the game and everything, they just sort of slotted it in. And even with the healing, like, how long ago did they even decide that the game was going to be a Holy Trinity game? It was
true.
It was like a year ago or something. It wasn't very long ago. I remember covering it when they originally put it in the game, and I could see them going towards Holy Trinity. And it wasn't long ago at all that they even decided, oh, you're going to have a healer. So it makes sense that it doesn't work, but for a full release game, like, how have they thought that was going to play? But you're absolutely right. It has had the most testing of pretty much any MMO I've seen. They've had so many, like, the closed alpha was multiple years, and they had it off and on, and then they've had like 3 at this point massive tests, and a lot of these problems were in the game for a lot of those tests, and they've just done seemingly nothing about any of them.
It feels like they've maybe not been listening to feedback, because a lot of the feedback and issues the game has now has been feedback that they've been receiving for well over a year at this point. One off the top of my head, like, this is a game that requires multiple gear sets, a gear set for each gathering profession, really. And because it's like easy to respec and everything, you probably want different gear sets for different builds as well. I remember people giving feedback about just an easy way to create and save sets so you can quickly switch between them. I remember people giving that feedback over a year ago. Nothing. It was very common feedback. It's like half of it's been disregarded.
Well, that's a really easy one to do.
Yeah.
Especially with the size of the team and everything. And we know the thing is like, at the beginning, the initial point of this being like how you're enjoying the game and everything, the weird thing is that despite all the problems in the game, I just enjoy playing it. So it's kind of a testament to the fact that if they really do continue to put effort in and fix these issues that are just really silly issues to even be in the game, like imagine how good it could be.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is why it's such a shame. That's why it pisses me off so much that it's the way that it is, because if they'd have just left the game in alpha for another year and fixed all these small little issues, just imagine how good the game really could have been on launch.
Yeah, I definitely think I agree with what you say about the game being foundationally very good. All of the issues that the game has, they're all so frustrating because they just seem so obvious to fix. And most players can just off the top of their head think of a very easy solution for a lot of the problems in the game. And it's kind of frustrating to me because some of the problems the game has are so obvious that it makes me question whether or not the developers actually play the game in some cases. But
yeah, it's either something that's broken at leadership level, or they just don't play this type of game, or don't fundamentally understand how other people play the game, because there are some things that foundationally don't make a lot of sense, like the factions and how wars and things work, and people are finding problems now with like how the game's even programmed, to the point where it's like, we probably shouldn't say how people are doing it, but there's bugs in the game that literally just straight up break everything about the game.
Yeah,
that are just in there. It's like, how do they fix that?
Yeah, true. And something I've noticed about New World is a lot of players go through this same kind of phase with the game. I think I went through the exact same phase as most players. When you first start playing, for the first 20 levels, the game's incredible. Especially if you go in blind, you haven't done any research. It feels like a real adventure. And even the first few standard quests where you're just searching for crates, it feels kind of fun because you don't know where the crates are. You haven't seen a lot of the copy and paste out in the world. It feels like an exploration game, right? Like you're actually searching for treasure. 20 levels in, and you start noticing a pattern. You start coming across a few of the same mobs, a few copy and paste buildings, and around level 20 to 30, it's like you go into a new area, but you've already seen the buildings from other places, and they're just copy and pasted. You know where all the chests are, and it really starts to grind you down. Josh Strife Hayes mentioned it in his recent video, the level 30 wall. That was something I definitely felt going into New World. I loved it for the first 20 or 30 levels, but level 30, that's when I really just hit that point where I was thinking, fuck, I can't keep doing this style of questing. Because going into the game, everyone told me, just take every quest you find, do the side stories from the towns, do your faction quests. And that's what I was doing. At level 30, because my plan was to just go in blind and not really do too much research. At level 30, I just thought, fuck this, I'm going to look up the most optimal leveling strategy.
Yes.
Because this is just dog shit. And
that's exactly what I did as well.
Yeah. And in the end, I ended up doing the town project board quests.
That's exactly. I'm literally doing that while we're talking right now.
It's
the only way to play the game, because if not, you've done everything that the game questing wise has to offer in the first. As soon as you do the first dungeon, you've seen every type of quest that the game has, and then you realize, do I want to keep doing this but being inefficient by having to run across the whole world repeatedly? Or do I just want to do the town board quest, which is the same thing? I'm doing the same thing anyway, but it's just more efficient. And the people who realize that and make that choice and commit to playing the game get past the level 30 grind, the level 30 wall. And the people that don't just simply stop logging into the game. Like, anecdotally, I started this game with 10 people, real life friends, 9 of them are real life friends. All 9 of them have stopped logging into the game between level 28 and level 38.
Yeah. That's just what happens.
I think that's that's happened to so many people, and everyone's talking about it. And it's like, I said the other day when I released a video on this, the problem is if you even do get past that point and you get to endgame, you quickly realize that not only are you doing the same thing the whole way to get there, but then when you get to endgame, half the stuff that you thought you were grinding for just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've started to encounter now. It's a bit of an epic fail, really, on Amazon Game Studios' part, because it's their fault that they've kind of created this situation. Isn't it kind of weird that the most efficient and enjoyable way of leveling up in this game is by taking a more sandboxy approach, by taking town project quests from 3 different towns, running around and experiencing the crafting aspect of the game, and kind of playing it more sandboxy, where when for the past year they've been trying their best to make it more of a theme parky experience with more of an emphasis on these kind of traditional style quests. I just feel like they've massively failed. Whoever has designed the quests in this game has done a worse job than any other quest designer I think I can think of. They are worse than 2004 WoW Classic quests.
Yep.
It's like they've never played an MMO
with it is
before.
as well. It's not even just the quest design; it's like the rewards and everything as well. They just don't make sense. Like the amount of stuff you get commensurate to the effort you put in to do the quests is completely off balance with any other reward mechanism in the game.
Absolutely, it doesn't make sense. I remember I was questing down in Cutlass Keys, and I would take a quest. It would give me 2,000 XP. And the quest giver would just be randomly somewhere on the map. There's nothing significant about his location. He'll send me all the way across the map to kill 10 of a certain type of mob, when the exact same type of mob is about 100 meters away. But no, he wants me to go over to the other side of the map and then come back for 2,000 XP. And it is so frustrating. Those kind of quests happen over and over. And the quests that I specifically hated the most were the faction PvE missions. And when I first started the game, I was kind of told, oh, that's a really good way of leveling, faction PvE missions, which isn't true because town project's a lot better. But these quests, I noticed there just wasn't enough mobs to go around. In a lot of these areas, there was enough mobs to maybe support one player in an area. And these are supposed to be repeatable missions that are being done by multiple players. It's so obvious to me that whoever's designed the quests in this game hasn't tested the quests and hasn't played the game. It feels like an intern has designed all of the quests in the game. And recently, well, today, I just did the second hardest dungeon in the game called Garden of Genesis, and I had a quest to do it. All it said was that I would get a 570 piece of gear. So I was kind of excited for that, but it didn't tell me what stats the gear would have. The fucking quest for doing the second hardest piece of dungeon in the game gave me a strength intellect heavy chest piece with two secondary stats which are durable. And that doesn't make sense to me because, yes, the dropped gear in this game is RNG in the same way that Diablo has RNG loot, but quest loot, I'm pretty sure, is like curated. It's like the same rewards every time. And it's like whoever's designed the reward for that quest has intentionally designed an item that is just insta-salvage for anyone. It's completely fucking useless. A green 500 gear score would be better.
Does it tell you what stats it has on it?
Huh?
Before you do the quest, does it tell you like what stats the item has on it?
It doesn't. It just says the type of thing it is. But I think that all of these end game quests do give the same rewards.
You see, that's even when you think about like mechanically, think about how all the game works, and as you've mentioned, like how the gear anyway is generally random stats. Why wouldn't the quest, if you were going to do it in that way, why wouldn't you just have the quest award you a random piece of gear, which would be better than a piece of gear that is for a build that is probably, even if it was good stats for some build, if it's bound to you, why is that? Why would you want to do that quest? What makes you want to continue doing the quests if the gear it's going to give you is for a build that you're probably not even going to be using anyways?
Yeah.
Like at least it'd be, even if it was RNG, it'd suck if you got a bad piece of gear, but maybe at least some people would get value out of it instead of it being useless for the vast majority of people.
Yeah, another thing that I've encountered recently as I've been trying to look into these legendary weapon quest chains, the stats on a lot of these legendary weapons are absolute garbage, to the point where I think I looked at the fire staff, the legendary fire staff, 580 gear score. Currently, I've been using the 535 or 520 gear score PvP fire staff, 525. due to the secondary stats on this legendary piece of gear being absolute garbage, the 525 fire staff is better. And this is a legendary fire staff that someone has put into the game specifically to be good. Like, some of the legendaries are just trash. It just shows that the developers who have made the quest rewards don't know what's good, don't know what's rewarding. It's like half of the secondary stats on these quest rewards are just pulled out of a hat.
Yeah, and it feels like most of the game's problem is purely that they just simply don't know. It's like the game, and we knew this was going to be the case anyway because of how they went from originally it's a sandbox survival game to it's now a theme park PvE experience mostly, and we're catering to a totally different audience. You can just see like the contradiction in game design all over, and the more you play it, the more you feel like the game's actually working against the good aspects of the game to make itself worse. It's like they've just completely 180'd and just started doing things that don't work together at all. There's no cohesion to the game.
Yeah. For the questing, how is there no option, like in every other MMO I can think of, to have maybe multiple choice quest rewards? Like, even in WoW Classic, you would have that, right? Gives you two different options. No, just nothing.
I think the vast majority of the problems stem from they just gave themselves not enough time. And obviously we can't say whether this came from the development studio or people above them. That's the problem. Like, they probably got rushed and had to push this game out as soon as possible. But they just clearly didn't have enough time to do what they needed to do to the game to get it to be what they wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And the issue is with changing it while the game's live is people are playing the game based on what the current mechanics are and doing things based on what they think the game is now. And then they're just going to have to come in and make sweeping changes that change stuff that are fundamental to how people have already been playing. Like, something's got to happen about faction balance, how important land is and stuff like that to guilds. And that's just going to mess a lot of people up, as well as the fact that because that's so important, if people stop playing the game because of all these problems, then it creates the self-fulfilling prophecy of even more people stop playing the game, and then they have to come back in and start merging servers and things like that. It's just, they've created like this what would the term even be? Like, they've made their bed and now they're going to have to sleep in it because these problems are going to cause people to quit the game. And
this is a game that really does rely on a lot of players. Especially at endgame, if you want to progress your gear, you need to do this thing called watermarking, where you grind mobs in a group, elite mobs. And if there's not a lot of people playing and it's difficult to find a group, then it's going to be very difficult to increase your gear score. It's a very player-driven economy. It really relies on a lot of players, especially with the siege war aspects to the game as well. You need to upgrade different elements of your town with a lot of people via the town project board. As much as there's so many problems this game has, I'm absolutely addicted to it.
That's the problem. It's got so many problems, but the game is still fun. That, like, no matter what, just the basic elements of the game just make me want to keep playing. That's why it's so frustrating that it is the way that it is, because I feel like if they would have just given themselves more time, they could have launched this and had a complete polar opposite experience where pretty much everyone who got the idea of the game, which obviously some people are not going to like it, it's the same story for everything. The people that did get the idea of the game would just have not very many bad words to say about it, because it feels like they've got the aspect of like the open world gathering and just how the world feels and everything. It feels like an MMO does when you first get in those first 20 levels, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
It feels like you're part of this world and everything's like new and fresh and just really cool. And then you just realize like this is as deep as a puddle. Like there's no substance to it at all.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential with it though, but I think the potential comes from places that maybe Amazon Game Studio didn't intend. Yeah. I've noticed that a lot of the people that don't get New World and don't enjoy it are approaching it from the mindset of a traditional theme park MMO, whereas the people that really get New World and really see the potential are thinking about it from the point of view of, I'm going to play this game like a modern version of RuneScape. And that's the approach I've been taking. Like, in my mind, I've been playing it like, I want to max all the
just
skills, I want to see all the
yeah.
content. I think if they start designing content that kind of embraces that, like a modern RuneScape where it rewards completionism, you get special like cosmetics for maybe maxing a skill. I don't know if you're familiar with RuneScape's skill capes. I think that'd be so cool in New World.
Yeah.
A special cosmetic for going around the world and finding all of the pages, just cool things to flex. You could get legendary treasure maps dropped from mobs that send you on, like, you could have like spades in the game. You go around the map digging up actual treasure or something. There's so much potential when it comes to like ideas for future content. I have so many ideas for this game. It's just like foundationally, it's amazing to build upon.
Yeah. The problem with me in looking at it like that, and I absolutely 100% agree, is some of the problems with the game are so weirdly handled, and some of the features and things like that it just makes me question not only like who's making the decisions and how much they understand the game and how people play the game or how people want to play the game, versus how much of this is like just sheer incompetence and like things that should absolutely not be the case at all. And then the public facing, like how they've handled some of the controversy as well, with like the people getting auto banned for reports and being told by GMs that there is an automated system banning people, and then the community managers like, no, those GMs are lying, we're gonna have to look into why they're talking like that. Like, it's just really, I don't know if I trust that they're going to be able to actually do it.
Yeah, that is a concern I have as well. Another big concern I have on like a fundamental level is, and this would require a lot of changes, like the game's economy. This was a concern I had about New World about 2 years ago when I first tested it in like fairly early alpha. I was always just thinking this game's economy is it's going to be very strange because everyone can do everything. And if prices are at a certain point, then and money is too difficult to come by, then players aren't going to buy anything on the trading post. They're just going to go out and get everything themselves. Yeah. And it's weird because back then you actually got a lot of money from killing mobs. You would get gold a lot more frequently than you do now. I think now there's like a 5% chance to get gold. I think we're like 3 weeks in and it feels like there's a massive lack of gold coming into the game's economy. And you can see that in the way that prices have gone down so much since launch. Nobody wants to spend their gold. It's become harder to make gold now than it was at launch. Typically in an MMO, the economy is inflationary, or it seems like in New World it's deflationary. And this definitely hasn't been helped by the fact that they've had to disable Outpost Rush, which was one of the main ways that gold was injected into the economy. I think you would get 600 gold per Outpost Rush, which is the, I think, 20 versus 20 battleground. That's actually
crazy as well.
Yeah.
That's a crazy amount of money. They've also removed it from fishing as well, like I said earlier, to prevent botting. Apparently the solution for botting is to just absolutely gut the economy from fishing. You didn't get fishing loot boxes very often. It was nice when you got them. It was really cool. And then now fishing just seems like a complete waste of time, in my opinion, as someone who's been doing it quite a lot, which I know most people are probably not going to care about that, but it does go to show that it seems like their solution to problems is just to ruin other aspects of the game and just, rip off the Band-Aid and just throw something at the wall and see what sticks, instead of really sitting and thinking about how can we address these issues and put something in that makes sense. It just seems like disabling things is their solution.
It's like with the recent change in the past week, they heavily buffed the drop rate of components from crates, like to a ridiculous degree. And and it's weird because throughout the leveling, part of the thing that makes looting all of these goddamn chests like manageable in your mind, like you don't get,
because you need the stuff.
You need the stuff. It's rewarding because the components are worth a lot of money, so you don't mind looting chests when you know the value of the components. but with the components being worthless, it kind of makes the whole leveling process a lot worse as well, because you're looting chests and you're getting garbage essentially.
Yeah, I didn't even read the patch notes to know that they'd done that, but I felt it in the game, because in the first like week or so when I was playing, I was constantly running out of the refining materials to like go up tiers and make steel or bricks or whatever. And then I was constantly feeling like I needed to go to these villages and these points of interest to specifically look for the crates. And then just randomly within a couple of days of it being patched, I just haven't felt the need to go and open a box ever at all, and I just haven't run out of the materials. So it's like they went from this idea, this is why it's so weird, they went from this idea that it was going to be really scarce and it was going to be like a bottleneck for people, to just within one day just buffing it to such a ridiculous extent that it's not even a thought now. I don't even have to think about these things, I just simply have them. So it's like, how can you go from a year of testing with the drops being one way and having this scarcity in the economy to just within a day just making it the complete polar opposite and making it completely worthless? It's like such a weird flip-flop. That's such a huge change just overnight. And it's like, how did you get to that point from where you were previously without ever noticing before?
Yeah, it just seems really poorly thought out, like with a lot of things in this game. Just poorly thought out. Like they'll think about it on one level, like the immediate consequence of doing something, but they won't think about the kind of chain reaction that these things cause.
Yeah, one problem I always had thinking about the economy as well, this is something that a lot of people have mentioned, but it was prevalent as soon as they changed the game from being full loot PvP and having items be destroyed and things like that. You've got people playing the game and items constantly being made, but items never leave the economy. So the longer people play and the more people play and the more of the best in-slot items get made, the less demand there will be. So it's just a constant like lowering of prices as well, with the current gold problems as well. It just seems like within a very short period of time, pretty much everything's just going to be worthless.
Yeah. In hindsight, the best strat in this game would have been to just hold all of your gold, not spend it on anything unnecessary from the start of the game. If someone just from launch just gathered everything, sold every single thing they gathered on the market because it's such a declining economy, then they'd probably be super rich at this point. Yeah.
Like, I'm stood inside Wynwood right now, and just looking outside, there's about 50 people just fighting randomly outside the town walls, which is like, New World is such a cool game like that people are just creating their own fun and playing it like a sandbox. But it does honestly feel like everything that they've done in the last couple of years to turn it into more of a theme park just plays against what people are playing the game for completely. If you just treat it like, you say, RuneScape, just running around skilling and just making your own fun and not doing the structured things that they put into the game's way better.
Definitely. I think that's where a lot of people have kind of gone wrong, or have kind of like missed the main point of enjoyment of the game. Like, my girlfriend's playing the game with me as well, and she took the whole World of Warcraft style leveling approach that I took initially as well. And she's not an experienced gamer or anything, but she was definitely... No, she was complaining before level 30. She was like level 20, she was about to be done. And I said to her, stop leveling like this. Told her about the town projects, told her about the Sandbox style of leveling. And she got completely obsessed with it. She's playing the game like 10 or 12 hours a day now.
Yeah. Honestly, mate, the thing that a lot of people have mentioned, and I don't know if you've noticed this, New World does such a good job of like rewarding your brain with the feel good every time you do anything. Like, you pick up a flower, you get the noise that it makes, and you get the thing pop up on screen showing your progress to the next level.
Yes.
And you know that at the next break point you're going to be able to pick up new stuff. It always gives you something to be working towards, and visually and audibly makes you feel good and for doing that. And that's the best thing about New World. It's just doing these little things that add up to being progress on your character, and you always feel like no matter what you're doing, if you're getting lost in the world picking stuff up or gathering or just killing mobs or whatever, you feel like you're doing something meaningful. But then when you do what you think the game wants you to do, the quests, and which are all exactly the same pretty much in places that are the same with NPCs that are the same, like that's where the game is absolutely the weakest, and yet it feels like that is what they want people to be doing.
Yeah, which goes to show that they don't understand the strengths of their game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like as well with the fast travel, like I don't know if you've ran into this at all yet, but it feels like unless you're playing the game in a very specific way, fast travel kind of becomes a bit of a bottleneck. Like for gathering, unless you've got even if you've got the Azoth gather on tools and stuff like that, if you're just doing town projects, you get no Azoth at all. Like it feels like the most efficient way to play the game is just 10 minutes of running between each settlement, unless you're doing corrupted breaches or the main story quest or whatever to get Azoth. Like that was a huge bottleneck for me.
Yeah.
Very recently when I did start doing the town projects, which again, it just feels like you're being punished for playing the game in the way that feels the most fun and makes the most sense.
Yeah. Another really weird thing is, doesn't it feel weird that when you level up your gathering and you can gather something of a higher tier, such as like gold ore, silver ore, star metal, like the higher tier gatherable resources in this backwards economy are often worth less than the tier 1 resources you can gather at a very early level, due to the way the refining is designed, in that it requires multiple of the tier 1 resource. Did that feel a little bit weird to you whilst leveling up? I was really disappointed when I finally unlocked mining star metal. I look on the marketplace and it was like 0.06 each at the time, and gold ore and platinum ore is just completely worthless. People just drop it on the floor.
Yeah, I feel like there's a problem with a lot of the like less frequent materials you get and stuff like that, where I think it's twofold or maybe more. The two problems I've noticed mostly is a lot of the materials, like the rarer ones, don't have very many uses, or at least the stuff that you craft with them is stuff that people just don't need it while leveling, so just nobody uses it. So it's not really being used for anything other than maybe fringe cases of people using it to level their skill, which is going to be very few people, and then there's so many of them in the economy that they can just take them. As well as people are obviously bottlenecked at the moment, where a lot of people haven't spent a lot of time leveling their crafting skills and stuff like that, so everyone's been gathering while they've been running around the world. So there's a ton of these materials, especially the later ones that maybe they can't refine yet, and then they've not been getting spent, so there's just tons of them. That might equal itself out a little bit, and then we'll probably find that later on, like the tier 1 and tier 2 materials are worth a ton of money, just because high level people don't want to run around low level zones gathering a bunch of bad materials. Yeah, which kind of goes to show that the pyramid of how the refining and stuff works is kind of a little bit off right now. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more forgiving on how many of each material you need, that's lower than the higher tier ones, because they did specifically make that change. I don't know if you remember in alpha, you used to be able to just get tons of high tier materials by just salvaging gear.
Yes,
and they specifically wanted people not to do that, to incentivize people to gather and refine as like a main focus. But then you look at like how many of them you need to get to a higher tier material, and it doesn't feel worthwhile doing.
Yeah, that was definitely a big problem before. I think a lot of these issues are very fixable. Like the issue I have with the some of the resources and their values not really making any sense, that could very easily be fixed just by finding some more uses for items, changing around the values of how much of something you need for crafting, buffing items and whatnot. I do think eventually a lot of those things will get sorted out if there's any competency by the developers, because it'd be ridiculous if like a few months from now gold ore is still worth 0.01. Same for platinum, and it's like the rarest kind of resource for that category. I don't know. But there are the things that I'm really concerned about are things that maybe can't be fixed so easily. And this would be on the server and back-end kind of thing, especially when it comes to sieges. Now, around level, I think I was around level 50 or late 40s, I did my first siege in New World, and I actually really enjoyed it. I was playing as a ranged DPS, did pretty well, and I didn't really intend to get into the PvP side of the game. I was just going to play it casually, but after my first war, it was a pleasant experience, and I really started to look into it a lot more. I've done a few more wars since, had a decent time, but recently we've started to come across this issue of exploiting. People have found a lot of exploits, and it kind of exposes the game's problems on a technical level and on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many cases as well. Like it only takes a couple minutes to look up like videos from streamers and stuff, so you can see that it's happening to everybody. The exploits people are using, even when there aren't exploits, it can just turn into a laggy mess. And this is like the main. A lot of the things in New World revolve around you're an unwilling participant in who's owning territory. You just exist in the world, and if you're not part of the PvP crowd and you're not doing these things, you still march to the same tune as everybody else, because they own the land, they set the tax rates and things like that. They set what are going to be the projects that are being leveled up, and they have first dibs on stuff like the invasion and stuff like that. So you're forced to interact with this system as a player, and then the system fundamentally doesn't work from the ground up. And it's like that just trickles down into every other aspect of the game for every single player, whether they notice it or not. So that's like I think that's the biggest problem in the game. Like a lot of the other stuff we talk about can all be addressed, like you say, like the mid-level content burnout, the values of things, small bugs and issues like that. They're all non-issues in the long term. Every MMO launches that way with a bunch of problems that need tuning, and they generally just get better, and if they're going to survive, go from strength to strength. The issues with New World that are going to prevent that are the technical aspects that I don't even know how easier to fix, because they've been that way for 2 years now. Like these siege issues and things like that, and the performance and exploits, these have been around for so long that it's like they've known about them. How are they not fixed yet? And if they haven't managed to before launch, will they ever fix them? Like, can they fix them?
Yeah, just to get into specifics, I think the first big issue with the sieges were if you overlapped like Ice Gauntlet AoE on top of each other, which you naturally do, even like without any kind of ill intentions. Like generally, if it's a point capture game, of course everyone's just going to AoE the point when people are standing on the point. It just makes sense. This was like breaking the game. This was causing people to be frozen still, and it was kind of lagging out the server. So they actually disabled that, and their solution to fixing this issue was such a poorly thought out band-aid that it's kind of like messed up the balance of a lot of weapons, right? Like, I think you mentioned it in your video yesterday. If you was to put down an Ice Gauntlet AoE, and then another person with a lower gear score puts down another Ice Gauntlet AoE, the damage that's reflected is the one that it's the latest instance of the spell, right? So so if you've got like 600 gear score, you put down big damage AoE circle, someone can just grief you by putting on like a grey tier 2 Ice Gauntlet, and his damage is the one that's prioritized over yours. Yeah.
And it's not. It doesn't even have to be griefing either. If it was only griefing, that would be like one issue. But it's just the natural way of playing the game. You think you're in a siege or whatever. You don't even know a lot of the time, because obviously people are just pulling in high-level randoms still for these sieges. You don't even know who the people are. They could simply just have not very good gear score or whatever, or not have leveled up that weapon a lot, but want to use it in the battle. And then they put their stuff down, and it just makes what you did. It's like they're removing your ability to play the game in certain ways, which is just, again, it just goes to show that this is their solution to a massive problem, is not to, talk about it and wait until they've got a solution, or maybe disable wars or do something that ideally they really should do, since there are so many problems with them and there's so many people publicizing all the problems. Their solution is to just ninja patch in something that just ruins an aspect of the game completely and
ruins
just
mage
not even
gameplay.
talk about it.
It's ridiculous. That is how you play a mage in pretty much every kind of siege PvP MMO. People pick mage so they can AoE, like spike. AoE it's called. You do it in Guild Wars 2. You just kind of spike the same area, but it doesn't lag out the server in Guild Wars 2. It's just how you kind of play mass PvP, and the game's just incapable of handling that.
Yeah.
So what, are they just going to completely disable AoE in this game or something for multiple players? It doesn't make sense. Their fix is so poorly thought out. I can't really get my head around it. And after that, this is the new exploit today. Is the it's like there's a new exploit every day. Is the hatchet exploit, where you essentially become invincible simply by equipping a hatchet, going into your undying mode, which is a passive that you unlock at the later levels of hatchet mastery. Then you put your game in windowed mode and you're invincible.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what you'd expect from a AAA built MMO that's already in a launch state. Things that I don't know if we really want to talk about it too much, because obviously people are going to start looking for issues with this now, but I guess it's already been put out on social media. The fact that you can put your game in windowed mode and then just drag the window around your screen and become invulnerable in a game that is from Amazon Game Studios and is currently out and it centers around PvP and territory control is one of the most pathetic issues I've ever seen. Like, I've been covering MMOs for a while. You've been covering MMOs for a while. I've been playing them much longer than that. There's no words to describe how poorly implemented the actual technicalities of this game are, the technicals, for that to be a factor. It's like, how do you fix that? Like, I'm not a programmer. How do you even launch like that and think it's not going to get figured out? Or did you even know? Like, did they even know this was going to be a problem?
I don't think they tested windowed mode, to be honest. I actually came across this bug accidentally yesterday. I was working on a video, and I thought I'll just drag my game on the other side on my other monitor, because I wanted to just camp ironwood trees, like semi-AFK, just camp them on respawn. Dragged it in windowed mode, put it on my other monitor, and the game just went really weird. And at a certain point, you have to say a lot of it is incompetence, isn't it?
Yeah.
The optimist in me kind of hopes that New World's going to pull an ESO on us. If you remember back when ESO launched, and I've said this, that was my expectations going into New World. I knew it wasn't going to be perfect going into it. So I guess that's why I've kind of like gotten through a lot of it, because I wasn't expecting a perfect game. I knew it had a lot of issues. So I've been playing it like despite that. I think I just hope that they see the feedback from the players and they see what type of content players have been enjoying, what's kept people engaged, see all of the weaknesses, and just kind of find their direction. Because there's so much potential. There really is. Yeah,
I 100% agree, because if they can get New World to like a good spot, obviously the game's not going to be for everyone. A lot of people have problems with the combat, which is, if you don't like the combat in New World, like, I can completely understand it, and it can definitely be fleshed out some more. Maybe give a couple of abilities that you get on your character that aren't tied to your weapons, like maybe self-heals, or, like a one movement ability each or something, something just additional to make you feel like you've got a little bit more that's not tied to your weapons. That's all stuff that, if you don't like that, the game's just not for you, and that's perfectly normal. But the things that you like New World for are just, if they do it a little bit better, just a little bit in every area, New World's going to be a fantastic game. Like, that's why, again, it's the most frustrating experience, because I fucking love the game, despite the fact that we can sit and talk about problems for hours and hours. Like, we'll end this, and then you'll think of another 10 things you could have talked about that are issues.
Yeah.
But just the feeling of playing the game, if you just ignore a lot of that stuff, it's just a great experience of playing for me.
Yeah, it's not as if there's another MMO. If you don't want to play New World, but you want to play a game like New World, there isn't another game like New World.
No,
it is
like
quite
you say,
unique
it's like it does
experience.
give you the feeling of that 3D RuneScape where you can just go out and just skill and turn your brain off, just have fun.
Yeah.
And like I say, they do all the dopamine things really well. Like, oh, I've just got 237 mining skill, and that's putting me towards 156 mining skill, and it feels rewarding to do all the basic things.
Yeah. I do think a lot of people do just need to accept that maybe New Worlds fundamentally isn't a game for them. A lot of the WoW crowd just don't seem to get it and seem to have like different expectations for the game. Like it's not that kind of WoW style MMO.
No,
which
I
it
do
shouldn't
think
try
they
to
want
be.
to go that way a little bit, which is going to be a shame. And I don't think they should try to do that, but I do think that they will.
Yeah.
Which is the problem. I think now that they've got the Trinity in there and they're doing the dungeons and everything, I do think they'll expand upon that more, which is fine. But it's always felt a little bit weird to me that it's the same thing with the fast travel. It feels at odds with what New World's good at. Like, New World's good at being in the world and it being an open world game where you're just out there playing and seeing people run around and stuff. And then you add in instances and add more instances later and fast travel and things. And it just seems like that's completely counterintuitive to the best things that I experienced with New World.
Yeah. I can't think of an MMO that has done a world as good as this game. Like visually, just being out in the world. I don't know how they've done it or what they've done, but I absolutely adore the sense of scale you get in this game. Like the size of your character relative to the buildings, and you see something in the distance and it looks absolutely huge. When you go into Ebonscale Reach for the first time, you see that mountain peak and it looks so tall and so far away, it's almost hard to believe that you can actually go there. Like I first saw it and I thought, there's no way the game's actually going to allow me to go that high. That place looks so far away, but you can go there. Every cool point of interest you see in the distance is a place you can travel to. I don't know if it's the field of view, if it's just the actual size of assets. They've just done a fantastic job. Brilliant job by the art team. There just needs to be a little bit more diversity when it comes to mobs.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. As well as world diversity as well. Like you mentioned, even scale reach. Like there's a few zones that break the mold.
Yeah.
But like the middle zones, like a lot of the middle zones are all, even if they're a little bit different, they're not that different. And then all the reusing of assets and then the monsters as well. It just feels like if they'd have had more time doing what they were trying to do with the game and fleshing this world out for what they're going for, in a year's time, bro, when we come back and look at New World and what they've done to the world and all the additions that they put in, I struggle to think of how amazing the world is going to be.
Yes, I think all of the zones that struggle from the copy and paste, repetitive buildings and monsters, they're all of the early zones that were developed first, but the two most recent ones, Ebonscale and Reekwater, they do have more unique mobs, unique assets, so I can just kind of see that all of the new content going forward will be new assets and hopefully won't be as much of an issue.
Yeah. It's just a shame as well because going back to that level 30 burnout, I think one of the problems of that is that they've fleshed out a little bit more of the end game by putting more stuff in there, which is cool, but that's like 100+ hours into the game before you get to see that. So a lot of people, by the time they even, they're not even going to get there. They just see, oh, I've done 3 zones in a row that all look identical and all the mobs are identical, and they just feel exactly the same, and then they think, is this all this game is? And then they quit. Yeah. Which is a huge shame, because when it does open up a little bit and you do start getting to those places, you're just like, this is fantastic. Like, it's so different. Everything looks and feels different. Just the feeling of being in New World and getting to the top of a mountain peak and the draw distance and everything, and you can just see things from miles away, and then you can actually go there, like you say, is just, I don't know. I've not played an MMO that makes me feel as good about being out in the world as New World. Probably since Darkfall Online, which is a terrible game, but the scale of that world was very similar. It just didn't have as much of a good draw distance,
The
and the
fucking
graphics
lighting
was
in this
absolutely
game as
terrible in
well.
comparison. Yeah, and
Unbelievable.
reflections as well.
Yeah.
Like on water, if you go fishing and like the sun's setting or something, and you stood there with the water reflecting it just looks incredible. Like, again, art team has absolutely carried the shit out of this game.
Yeah. If they could fix the early game leveling to stop the level 30 burnout, if they could do something to improve that, if they could completely fix the end game, because the end game right now is completely broken. If you have not got to New World's end game, or you haven't played the game yet and you're thinking about playing it, do not rush to end game. It's broken. Outpost Rush, the main gold generator and end game queuable PvP content, is disabled. You can't do it. It's broken. Sieges, completely broken. Too many exploits. It's like the biggest aspect of the game, one of them, the territory controllers, just does not work. The end game corrupted portals, which are a key way of getting the resources you need to craft the thing that will let you into endgame dungeons, they don't work either because the Azov staff is broken. The endgame is just completely fucked right now. So there's no reason to rush to it if you're a new player. So the best approach to take with New Worlds is to go into it knowing that there's a lot of bugs and issues, and play it like RuneScape. Go for completionism, just take it really chill, enjoy being in the world, and go in with the mindset that I have, that you'll kind of want to see the game improve over time. I'm sure it will improve over time. As much as New World is kind of fucked, like for me, I do want to be around for the journey of seeing it become a really good game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it will be a better game. Give it the year it should have had in development, and most of these issues are hopefully going to be completely irrelevant. And then I do think the game is 100% worth the money right now. Like, no matter what,
yeah.
if you get along with what the game is, you 100% are getting your money's worth, because if you just take it for the skilling and enjoying the world and stuff, and just casually log on and like second monitor content and stuff like that, watching a podcast or whatever while you're just enjoying the world and just skilling, you will just have a really good time with it. The PvP is fun enough when you can find it with the open world PvP. The wars are super hit and miss, but they can be enjoyable. You can even enjoy the PvE, the dungeons and stuff like that.
The dungeons
obviously,
are fun.
if you're doing endgame.
Especially fun as a healer. I really enjoy healing dungeons in this game.
So you can get your mileage out of the game. It's just, as you would have expected with a game that's gone through such a turbulent process of development, it just needs more time. And it's a shame that we're having to forgive and make this disclaimer for a game made by Amazon Game Studios. But what else can you do? Like, they've launched it like this. It wasn't ready. It was never going to be ready. Everyone who played the game, everyone who looked at the game that was being objective, knew this was going to be the case. And you just had to go in, not rush it, and then you could at least have a good enough time with it to say, I'm excited for the stuff that's going to come, and not just get burnt out on it and get really annoyed that there are problems when everybody knew there was going to be problems. It was just really obvious.
There's a lot of things to complain about, but ultimately, me and you were both still playing the game. We're both having a good time. So I hope people don't take this discussion, this little critique / rant from me and you as us hating on the game, because we bring up these issues because we want the game to reach its full potential, and the potential for New World is very high. Something that a lot of people said when the game first launched was that there wasn't a lot of content, that you'll burn through the content in a week or two. I actually don't really think that's true. Like, if the stuff that's supposed to be in the game at launch is all working, I think there's at least a few hundred hours worth of content. If you was to take the completionist route, max all of your weapons, 600 gear score, see all of the content, I do think that's hundreds of hours worth of content, and you're definitely going to get your money's worth.
I think on that specific point, I think there's not a lot of different things to do, but the things that there are to do take a lot of time to do.
Yeah.
Like in terms of all the skills and all the weapons and everything, they definitely can take a long ass time to do, and how many dungeons there are, and then like going through and finding the points of interest and getting the gear and doing the wars and everything, the things that are repeatable. There's stuff to do. There's just not a ton of variety, and I think that's one of the main problems that New World has, is it's the variety of the game.
Yeah. This little ramble's been going on quite a while. We're about an hour in at this point. Is there anything final you would say to someone thinking about getting into New Worlds? Would you recommend the game now in its current state overall?
Yeah, I would, as long as you don't go in expecting 15 years of World of Warcraft launch polish, or compare it to a game that's been out for so long that they've already fixed their problems and then they just have problems with how they're designing the game. Yeah, I would definitely recommend the game, as long as you go into it knowing that there are a ton of problems with it and there will continue to be problems. As long as they fix it, no matter what, you should get your money's worth if you do enjoy what they're doing. But as long as they fix these issues, you're looking at a really solid game within the next 12 months. And it's not going to get more expensive. It might get a little bit less expensive, but you should get your money's worth in the interim.
Yeah, it's about managing your expectations, really, and going into it with the right mindset, I think. Don't expect it to be a World of Warcraft. Don't expect it to be the next big MMO. Expect it to be something that you're going to maybe play, get in early, and watch it go through a lot of changes. But yeah, overall, I'd recommend it as well with that mindset.
100%.
What's your plans with New World going forward? Reach the end game? Do a full review, maybe?
Yeah, I've got a little bit left to do. Probably within the next week I'll be done with everything I want to do, and then I'm going to put out the full definitive video of my experience with it. Hopefully by then Amazon's put out a statement, or at least talked about some of the bigger problems, and we can see potentially what's on the horizon. Personally, I would love to see them implement a roadmap so we at least know roughly what we're going to get. But yeah, my plans are just to keep playing the game, keep taking it slow, keep leveling up my crafting and stuff, just the things that I find enjoyable, and then hope that within the next couple of months they put in a big patch that solves a lot of the problems and adds some more stuff for me to be doing. So what about you?
Same, really. I think I've finished recording my Journey to Max Level series. I've finished that a few days ago. Next, it's just going to be working on the full review. Going to continue playing the game as long as I'm still enjoying myself. But I'm definitely playing the game with the goal of being prepared for whatever content comes next. So that means maxing out a lot of my professions, trying out different play styles, and just seeing all of the content the game currently has to offer. So I'm just ready to go whenever the big patch comes, which I think probably won't take too long. Typically MMOs, they have a bit of a plan to release a patch within a few months of launch. So
yeah. I mean, we've seen loads of stuff get data mined from New World anyway already, so we know they've got a ton of content, specifically zones and new weapons and things like that already ready. And I think if I had to try and play devil's advocate for why they launched so early, knowing that there was so many problems, specifically content-wise, I think they've got a lot of stuff that they knew they'd be launching within the first couple of months, and that's why they've decided to do that. Yeah. Obviously, there's no excuse for all the bugs and middle content problems, but I do think they've got a bunch of stuff waiting to be added for endgame specifically.
Yeah. One more question. Let's say you've got a friend that has never heard of New World. How do you describe it to him? How do you sell this game to him?
Oh, no. Yeah, it's a low price of entry game that you can spend hundreds of hours just enjoying, doing what most people enjoy MMOs for, which is just grinding, just doing things that just make you feel good in terms of progress. You don't have to take the game very seriously, or you can take it very seriously, and you can do that at the switch of a button. You can play the game very casually, or you can play the game very hardcore, and the game does a really good job of letting you choose when and where you're going to do those things. So it's just an experience that you can tailor to how you want to play. Take it quick, take it slow, and it just really does excel at just making you feel like you're having an adventure. Just, again, don't take it too quickly. Yeah,
I think I'd say it's a third-person RuneScape with the Diablo loot style end game. that's buy to play and not pay to win, and super rough around the edges. That'd be my quick summary of the game.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for having the chat. It's been quite cool to do this little collab with you. I know we talk a lot just offline on Discord, so hopefully people enjoyed this discussions. I know we've got a lot of viewer overlap, but if you haven't heard of KiraTV, he's another MMORPG content creator. Links to his channel in the description below. Definitely recommend his videos, especially when it comes to the analytical and critique side of things. So thanks for joining me today, dude.
Thank you very much, mate.
Sweet.
Pleasure as always.